What happens when a quiet small town home filled with laughter and love becomes the scene of an unimaginable tragedy? In Beeson, Illinois, a family of 6, the G family, lived what seemed like an ordinary life, surrounded by neighbors who never imagined the horror that would soon unfold. On a calm September evening in 2009, their home became a house of nightmares. 5 lives were brutally taken, leaving only a 3-year-old girl fighting to survive. But the real shock came when investigators uncovered the chilling truth about who was behind the massacre. Why would someone target this innocent family? What dark secret could lead to such violence? And how did one survivor, a toddler, manage to hold on against all odds? This is not just a story about a crime. It's a story into betrayal, lies, and the haunting mystery that shattered the community. Who could commit such an act? And what drove them to it? Join us as we uncover the twisted tale of the G family massacre, a story that proves evil can hide where you least expect it. In September 2009, the G family lived what many would call an ordinary life in Beeson, Illinois. Rick G was a hard-working man, known for his dedication and strong work ethic. After years of hustling and saving, he purchased a ranch-style home on the edge of town, complete with a detached garage, farmland, and a pool. But Rick didn't stop there. He started his own construction business, building a brighter future for himself and his younger daughter, Nicole. Life took a turn when Rick met Ruth Constant, who initially moved into his home as a tenant with our 2 young children, Justina and Dylan. But it didn't take long for love to blossom between them. Ruth, known for her warm personality and sense of humor, was the perfect match for Rick. The couple got married in 1999 and built a family together, welcoming 2 more children, Austin and Jessica. But life wasn't without its challenges. Jessica, their youngest, was born with severe neurological disabilities, requiring specialized care the family couldn't provide locally. She was placed in a facility 50 miles away and tragically passed away before the horrific events that unfolded. Meanwhile, Dylan, one of Ruth's older children, struggled with behavioral issues and was eventually diagnosed with ADHD. The G's worked hard to support him, even seeking therapy to help manage his needs. Despite these hurdles, the family was close-knit. In 2006, they had another little daughter named Tabitha. Now let's talk about the second family in this story. When Nicole, Rick's daughter, married Christopher Harris, they lived just minutes away, frequently visiting Rick and Ruth. The G's even became grandparents, with Nicole and Christopher welcoming 2 children of their own. The G family seemed like the picture of a happy, normal life in Beeson, Illinois. Rick G, a hard-working contractor, had recently launched his own construction company, while Ruth G stayed home to care for their 4 kids. Justina, 16, was navigating high school life, and her younger brother Dylan, 14, was passionate about wrestling. 11-year-old Austin loved sports, and little Tabitha, just 3 years old, brought joy to their home. From the outside, it seemed like they had it all. But things weren't as perfect as they appeared. Rick and Ruth had faced struggles in their marriage, even divorcing at one point, but eventually reconciled and welcomed a son in 2009. But everything changed on September 21, 2009. When Rick didn't show up for work that morning, his stepfather Pudge grew concerned and went to their home to check on them. What he discovered was unimaginable, a sense of utter horror. 5 members of the G family had been brutally murdered. The sheer violence of the crime shook the small town of Beeson to its core. He immediately called 911, marking the start of an investigation that would reveal one of the most shocking crimes in Illinois history. Now, before we talk about the crime and how it happened, let's first understand the location. The G family lived in Beeson, Illinois, a tiny town about 200 miles from Chicago. With a population of around 200 people, Beeson was a quiet rural community tucked away amidst rolling hills and farmland. Life in this town moved slowly, where everyone seemed to know everyone else and crime was practically unheard of. Rick and Ruth's home was a focal point of family life. It was the kind of place where kids played outside and neighbors dropped by for a chat. Their prosperity, surrounded by farmland, was a reflection of Rick's hard work and determination. The home itself was simple yet inviting, a safe haven for their children to grow and thrive. But on one fateful September night, that sense of safety was shattered. It was an ordinary evening. The children were tucked into bed, and the family exchanged good nights, expecting nothing out of the ordinary. But as the town slept, a sinister force crept into the G household, turning their peaceful home into a scene of unimaginable horror. When the police arrived, the scene they uncovered was worse than anyone could have imagined. Blood was everywhere, splattered on walls, floors, even the ceiling. Rick's injuries were so severe that investigators initially suspected a shotgun had been used. But this was only the beginning. As officers moved through the house, they found 14-year-old Dylan in the hallway, curled up on the floor outside the main bedroom. Like Rick, his head had been brutally attacked. Inside the bedroom, they discovered Ruth, dressed in her nightgown, lying lifeless on the floor. Half of her skull had caved in. The violence was staggering, the brutality incomprehensible. In the bathroom, 11-year-old Austin was found face down on the blood-soaked tiles. He was dressed only in his underwear, and like the others, his injuries were catastrophic. The family seemed to have been caught completely off guard, perhaps while getting ready for bed. There were no signs of a struggle, only the devastating aftermath of a merciless attack. As the officers continued, they entered 16-year-old Justina's room. What they found there was beyond words. Blood covered every surface, soaking into the bed where Justina lay on her stomach. Her injuries were the most severe of all, with brain matter pooled beneath her head. The sheer level of violence left even seasoned investigators shaken. Despite the horrors they uncovered, the officers had one more discovery to make. A 3-year-old girl, Tabitha, clinging to life. She had suffered repeated blows to the head, but miraculously she was still breathing. A paramedic quickly picked her up and rushed her to an ambulance. There was no time to waste. Tabitha was taken to the nearest trauma center with her aunt Nicole by her side. She was barely clinging to life. Tabitha's survival was a small glimmer of hope in an otherwise nightmarish scene. The Beeson massacre was a crime so brutal, so incomprehensible, that it left the entire community in shock. What could drive someone to commit such an act? And who would be capable of such evil? Those answers would come, but not without uncovering even darker secrets. The massacre had left 5 members of the G family dead. Rick, Ruth, Justina, Dylan, and Austin. Each victim suffered horrific injuries, indicating they were beaten to death with extreme violence. Forensic pathologists later confirmed the brutality of the attacks. Rick, the father, endured 39 blows, 13 of which were to his head. Ruth was struck 28 times and her skull was crushed. Austin, a just 11-year-old, was hit at least 21 times, and the signs showed he was forced against hard surfaces during the attack. Dylan, 14, suffered over 100 wounds, with 52 identified strikes to his body. The injuries showed a level of rage that was hard to comprehend. Justina, the oldest, was also brutally attacked, with at least 15 injuries. Her skull was so badly damaged that the top part was missing. Despite all of this, Tabitha survived. She was critically injured with multiple skull fractures and severe brain swelling. Doctors acted quickly, removing pieces of her skull to relieve the pressure and give her a chance to recover. Her survival became a small glimmer of hope amidst an unimaginable tragedy. While Tabitha fought for her life, the police were left to unravel the mystery of who could have committed such a brutal crime. 2 investigators, Logan County Sheriff's Corporal Michael Block and Illinois State Trooper Paul Hennessy, searched the crime scene for evidence. They discovered a bloody handprint on the bathroom vanity and the fresh shoe print outside the home. Both pieces of evidence hinted at the killer's identity, but they weren't enough to immediately crack the case. The investigation expanded to the community. Officers went door to door, questioning neighbors and following up on every lead. One witness reported seeing a silver pickup truck near G home around the time of the murders. The truck had distinctive exhaust pipes rising behind the cab, a detail the police hoped would help them track down the vehicle. Forensic experts began piecing together the sequence of events. Dr. John Ralston, a forensic pathologist, conducted autopsies on the victims. The sheer number of injuries made it difficult to document everything. However, one thing was clear. These attacks were personal. Initially, some thought the injuries were caused by a shotgun, but the autopsies revealed the victims had been bludgeoned to death. The weapon was likely something heavy, like a tire iron, used with unrelenting force. Each family member fought back as much as they could, but the ferocity of the attacks left them no chance to survive. At the hospital, the focus was on keeping Tabitha alive. Her condition was critical. She couldn't speak or see due to the swelling in her face, but she could move one arm, showing she still had some strength. Her medical team worked tirelessly, performing delicate procedures to give her a fighting chance. Meanwhile, Nicole, her aunt, stayed by her side, providing comfort and support. Police officers were stationed outside Tabitha's room, worried that the killer might try to harm her. As days passed, fear gripped the small town of Beeson. The G's were a well-liked family known for their kindness and generosity. Neighbors struggled to understand how such a tragedy could happen to people they knew. The police urged everyone to lock their doors and stay vigilant, a stark contrast to the sense of safety the community once felt. A week after the murders, the G family was laid to rest in a heartbreaking funeral. While the community mourned, Tabitha continued her battle for survival in the hospital. The sense of loss was overwhelming, but so was the fear. The killer was still out there, and no one knew if they would strike again. Just when it seemed like the investigation had stalled, a random but significant clue emerged. The investigation into the G family massacre took a pivotal turn at the hospital where Tabitha, the sole survivor, was being treated. Officers were on high alert, guarding the little girl day and night. One evening, as an officer wrapped up his shift, he shared an elevator with Christopher Harris, who had just visited Tabitha. The officer's sharp eye caught something unusual. Christopher was wearing K-Swiss sneakers with a tread pattern eerily similar to the shoe print found outside the crime scene. This discovery set off a series of events that unraveled a web of lies and led investigators closer to the truth. Detectives wasted no time calling Christopher Harris in for questioning. They compared his shoe to the prints at the crime scene, but there was one issue. The shoe size didn't match perfectly. His sneakers were slightly larger than the print. However, this small discrepancy didn't deter detectives. Something felt off, and they decided to dig deeper. They collected Christopher's fingerprints and palm prints and sent them for analysis. While investigators worked on forensic evidence, Christopher's brother, Jason Harris, jumped to his defense. Jason provided an alibi, claiming they had been together the entire night far away from the G family's home. Christopher's ex-wife, Nicole G., also rushed to defend him, angrily denying any involvement. She took to MySpace, writing an emotional post insisting he was innocent. Her message was clear. Christopher had been there for their children and wasn't capable of such violence. Nicole wasn't alone. Christopher's stepmother, Debbie Harris, and father, Ed Harris, publicly supported them. Ed, in tears during a phone call with Christopher, later shared how his son expressed fear, saying, "Dad, I'm scared because I know the killers are still out there." Despite the family's support, detectives pressed forward, determined to uncover the truth. During Christopher's booking, police photographed his body and noticed something peculiar. While he didn't have any major injuries, there was a blister on his right palm. This detail raised eyebrows. Around the same time, investigators found a tire iron near a creek close to Jason's house, a potential murder weapon that would later connect Christopher to the crime. Detectives also focused on Christopher's truck, which was registered to Jason's girlfriend, Jennifer. Both Jennifer and her mother, Sarah Duncan, had provided alibis for Christopher and Jason. However, as investigators dug deeper, these alibis fell apart, leading to their arrests for obstruction of justice. The cracks in their stories further fueled suspicions about Christopher and Jason's involvement. As the investigation intensified, two women came forward with crucial information. Lori Cole, an armed security guard, recalled a late-night visit from Christopher and Jason on the night of the murders. She remembered them knocking on her door around 11:35 p.m., asking if she wanted to party. Lori turned them away, noting their odd behavior. They seemed like they didn't want the night to end. Her account added another piece to the puzzle. Placing the brothers near the crime scene, another woman, Christy Moore, shared a shocking revelation. Christy, who had been in an on and off relationship with Christopher, revealed that he visited her the morning after the murders. She described how he acted completely normal and even posed for selfies in her bed. These photos showed Christopher smiling and relaxed with no visible injuries. Despite his calm demeanor, Christy's account further tied him to the timeline of events. The investigation reached a breaking point when Jason Harris, initially charged with obstruction of justice, faced upgraded charges of first-degree murder and attempted murder. Facing the possibility of life in prison, Jason made a life-changing decision. He started talking. Jason's story was chilling. He described how the night began with heavy drinking and drug use, including cocaine. The brothers, fueled by alcohol and drugs, decided to seek female company. After being turned down by several women, they ended up at the G family's home. Jason claimed it was Christopher's idea to go there, allegedly because he believed Justina G, the 16-year-old daughter, had been flirting with him. According to Jason, Christopher approached the house while he waited in the truck. What happened next was nothing short of horrifying. Jason heard screams and thuds coming from inside the house. He saw Dylan, the 14-year-old son, jump out of a window, bleeding heavily. Christopher chased Dylan, striking him multiple times with a tire iron. Despite his injuries, Dylan managed to get back inside the house only to face more violence. Jason alleged that Christopher then re-entered the home, finishing what he had started. Jason's story shifted multiple times, with inconsistencies casting doubt on his credibility. However, one detail remained constant: his claim that Christopher was the killer. Investigators retraced Jason's account and found critical evidence. The K-Swiss sneakers and tire iron, both discarded along a dirt road, carried DNA matching Christopher and the G family. These findings solidified the case against them. A complaint of attempted sexual assaults against Christopher involving Justina added another layer of motive. Although the charges were dropped shortly before the murders, they pointed to Christopher's troubling intentions that night. Adding to the mounting evidence, a former cellmate of Christopher Harris came forward, claiming Christopher had confessed to the murders. The cellmate's account painted a dark picture. He described how Christopher attacked Rick G with a tire iron after an argument at the door. When Ruth G tried to intervene, Christopher turned his rage on her. Dylan, in a desperate attempt to protect his mother, grabbed a knife, but he was overpowered. The cellmate claimed Christopher expressed no remorse, even saying his only regret was not burning down the house to cover his tracks. In the end, Christopher Harris was found guilty on all charges, including 5 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. He received 5 consecutive life sentences, along with additional years for home invasion and robbery. Jason, who testified against his brother, received a 10-year sentence in exchange for his cooperation. The G family's tragic story left a lasting impact on the small town of Beeson. A playground was dedicated in memory of the children, ensuring their legacy would be one of joy and remembrance, not just tragedy. And while little Tabitha faced a long road to recovery, her survival became a symbol of hope amidst unimaginable loss. Do you believe Jason Harris's testimony was truthful? Or do you think he shaped this story to save himself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining us on this episode. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with our next in-depth investigations on Real Crime Zone. See you in our next video.